The desert heat shimmered off the cracked asphalt as Marcus Rivera adjusted his tactical vest for the 100th time that morning. 28 years old, 6 feet of lean muscle honed by years of SEAL training, he carried himself with the quiet confidence that came from surviving 3 tours in Afghanistan. The red cross on his shoulder marked him as the team medic, but the scars on his hands told a different story. One of bullets extracted under fire and lives saved in moments when death seemed certain. The convoy of 4 armored vehicles crawled through the outskirts of Kandahar, their destination a remote forward operating base that had gone silent 12 hours earlier. Marcus sat in the second vehicle, his medical kit secured between his boots, watching the landscape roll past through bulletproof glass. Beside him, Sergeant Jake Thompson cleaned his rifle with mechanical precision, while across from them, the newest addition to their unit fidgeted with her gear. Staff Sergeant Elena Vasquez had joined Charlie Team just 2 weeks ago, transferred from a classified unit that nobody talked about. Marcus had heard whispers in the mess hall. Some said she was Special Operations. Others claimed she was CIA. What he knew for certain was that she was the first woman assigned to their direct action team, and the brass had made it clear that she was here to stay. Elena kept to herself mostly, speaking only when necessary during briefings. She was small, maybe 5'6", with dark hair pulled back in a regulation bun and eyes that seemed to catalog every detail of her surroundings. During their brief training exercises, she had performed adequately. Nothing spectacular, but competent enough. Marcus had assumed she was another pencil pusher being given a taste of real combat for political reasons. The radio crackled to life, interrupting his thoughts. Charlie Team, this is Overwatch. Intel suggests possible IED activity en route Falcon. Maintain heightened awareness and reduce speed to 15 clicks. Lieutenant Colonel Morrison's voice came through their headsets with practiced calm. Marcus felt the familiar tightening in his chest that preceded contact. 3 years of combat had taught him to read the signs. The way conversations died, how everyone's breathing changed, the subtle shift from casual alertness to combat readiness. The convoy slowed as they approached a cluster of mud brick buildings that served as a checkpoint. Local children scattered from the roadside, and Marcus noticed how the few adults visible quickly disappeared into doorways. In his experience, when civilians vanished, trouble usually followed. Elena shifted in her seat and Marcus caught her checking her sidearm with movements so fluid they seemed choreographed. Her fingers moved over her gear with the kind of muscle memory that came from years of practice, not weeks. For the first time, he wondered if the rumors about her background might be true. The first vehicle in their convoy had just cleared the checkpoint when the world exploded. The IED detonated directly under the lead Humvee, launching it 3 feet into the air before it crashed down on its side. The blast wave hit their vehicle like a physical punch, spiderwebbing the bulletproof glass and filling the air with the acrid smell of explosives and burning fuel. Contact IED on the lead vehicle, Thompson shouted into his radio as automatic weapons fire erupted from the buildings around them. Marcus grabbed his medical kit and prepared to exit the vehicle, but their driver was already backing away from the kill zone while laying on the horn to warn the vehicles behind them. Through the chaos, Marcus could see figures moving in the smoke around the overturned Humvee. 4 men down in the lead vehicle. Came the desperate call over the radio. Need immediate medical assistance. The convoy found cover behind a concrete barrier 200 meters from the blast site. As Marcus prepared to make the dash to the wounded, he became aware that Elena had gone completely still beside him. Not the freeze of fear. He had seen that plenty of times, but the absolute stillness of a predator selecting its moment to strike. When she finally moved, it was like watching someone transform. The quiet, reserved soldier who had sat beside him moments before was gone, replaced by something Marcus had never seen before. Elena's movements became precise and economical, as she checked her weapon and studied the terrain ahead with the focused intensity of a professional killer. Vasquez, you stay with the vehicles, Thompson ordered as he prepared to lead the rescue team. Elena looked at him with those dark eyes, and for a moment Marcus saw something in them that made his blood run cold. Respectfully, Sergeant, that's not going to happen. Before Thompson could respond, Elena was out of the vehicle and moving toward the kill zone with a speed and grace that defied explanation. She didn't run in the panicked sprint of someone trying to reach cover quickly. Instead, she moved like smoke, using every piece of cover, every shadow, flowing from one position to the next in a way that made her nearly invisible. Marcus followed, his medical training overriding his surprise, but he found himself struggling to keep up with Elena's pace. She moved through the urban terrain like she had been born to it, reading the angles and sight lines with an expertise that took most soldiers years to develop. The wounded were trapped in the overturned Humvee, and enemy fire was coming from at least 3 different positions in the surrounding buildings. Every time someone tried to approach the vehicle, bullets would impact the ground around them, forcing them back. Marcus took cover behind a concrete wall and assessed the situation. 2 of the men in the Humvee were unconscious. One was screaming for help, and the 4th was returning fire through a hole in the roof. Getting to them would require crossing 30 meters of open ground under direct fire. He was calculating angles and planning his approach when he realized Elena was no longer beside him. Looking around frantically, he spotted her already halfway to the overturned vehicle, moving through the gunfire with an impossible combination of speed and stealth that left him questioning what he was seeing. As bullets kicked up dust around her feet, Elena continued forward without hesitation, her rifle raised and ready. Marcus watched in stunned silence as she reached the vehicle and immediately began providing cover fire with a precision that spoke of extensive combat experience. The woman who had barely spoken during briefings was now orchestrating a rescue operation under fire with the confidence of a seasoned operator. Marcus forced himself to move, his medical training overriding his shock at Elena's transformation. He sprinted across the open ground, expecting at any moment to feel the impact of bullets that never came. When he reached the overturned Humvee, he found Elena positioned at the rear of the vehicle, her rifle trained on the windows of a 3-story building where muzzle flashes had been appearing. She didn't acknowledge his arrival, completely focused on providing suppressive fire with an accuracy that was making the enemy keep their heads down. Marcus had served with some of the best marksmen in the Navy, but Elena's shooting was different, each shot deliberate and placed with surgical precision. She wasn't just suppressing the enemy, she was systematically eliminating threats. Inside the vehicle, Corporal Danny Martinez was unconscious with a severe head wound, blood pooling beneath him in the inverted cabin. Private First Class Tommy Chen was trapped under the steering wheel, his left leg bent at an unnatural angle. The other 2 soldiers were Sergeant Mike Foster, who was semi-conscious and bleeding from multiple shrapnel wounds, and Specialist Rick Hayes, who was alert but had obvious signs of internal injuries. Marcus crawled into the cramped space and began his assessment. Martinez needed immediate attention. The head wound was severe and he was showing signs of increased intracranial pressure. Chen's leg was definitely broken, probably in multiple places, but he was stable. Foster had lost a significant amount of blood from shrapnel wounds to his torso, and Hayes was showing signs of internal bleeding that could become critical quickly. "I need to get Martinez out first," Marcus called to Elena. "His brain injury could be fatal if we don't decompress it soon." Elena's response came without her taking her eye from her scope. "Give me 30 seconds to clear the building." Before Marcus could ask what she meant, Elena was moving again. She low-crawled away from the vehicle toward a position that gave her a better angle on the building, where most of the enemy fire was originating. Marcus watched in disbelief as she took aim and began placing shots through windows with methodical precision. Each shot was followed by a distinct silence from that position. She wasn't just shooting at muzzle flashes, she was hitting targets. In less than 90 seconds, the building went completely quiet. "Building clear," Elena announced calmly. "Move your patient." Marcus didn't waste time questioning her assessment. He carefully extracted Martinez from the vehicle, stabilized his neck, and began emergency treatment for the head injury. The bleeding was significant, and Marcus worked quickly to relieve the pressure while Elena maintained overwatch. As he worked, Marcus became aware of radio chatter from other elements of their unit. Charlie team had been split into 2 squads for this mission, and the second squad was reporting contact 3 clicks to their north. What he was hearing suggested they were facing a coordinated attack, not a random IED strike. "Vasquez," came Thompson's voice over the radio. "What's your status?" Elena keyed her mic without moving from her position. "Building secured. Medic is treating casualties. Recommend immediate medevac for critical head injury." "Copy that. Air support is 15 minutes out." "Can you hold position?" Marcus looked around at their exposed position and the 3 remaining wounded soldiers who still needed extraction from the vehicle. 15 minutes felt like a lifetime when they were sitting in the middle of what was essentially a shooting gallery. Negative on holding this position, Elena responded. Too exposed. I'm going to clear us a path to better cover. Before Thompson could respond, Elena was moving again. This time, Marcus watched more carefully, trying to understand what he was seeing. She moved from cover to cover with purpose, not randomly seeking protection, but methodically advancing toward the next building where enemy fighters might be positioned. Her weapon handling was unlike anything Marcus had seen in conventional forces. Every movement was economical and purposeful. She cornered buildings like someone who had been trained in close-quarters combat by the best operators in the world. When she disappeared into the next building, Marcus counted the seconds until he heard the distinctive crack of her rifle. 3 shots. Then silence. 2 minutes later, her voice came over the radio with the same calm tone she might use to order coffee. Path clear to the compound on your 2 o'clock. Recommend immediate displacement of casualties to that position. Marcus began the delicate process of moving Martinez while Thompson and the others worked to extract the remaining casualties from the vehicle. As they moved toward the compound Elena had identified, Marcus noticed that the enemy, fire that had been coming from multiple directions, had completely stopped. The compound turned out to be a partially constructed building with concrete, walls thick enough to stop small arms fire and multiple exits. Elena had positioned herself at the entrance, scanning the surrounding area with the focused intensity of someone who saw threats everywhere. As Marcus continued working on Martinez, he found himself stealing glances at Elena. The transformation he had witnessed wasn't just about combat skills. Her entire demeanor had changed. The quiet, almost shy soldier who had joined their team had been replaced by someone who moved and acted like a veteran special operations operator. When the medevac helicopter finally appeared on the horizon, Elena coordinated the landing zone with the efficiency of someone who had done it hundreds of times before. She directed the approach, marked the landing site, and provided security overwatch while the casualties were loaded. As Martinez was lifted into the helicopter, Marcus caught Elena checking her ammunition and scanning the rooftops around them. Even with air support overhead and the immediate threat neutralized, she remained in full combat mode, ready for the next engagement. The helicopter lifted off with Martinez and Hayes, the 2 most critical casualties. Chen and Foster were stable enough to return to base with the convoy, but Marcus knew they had been minutes away from losing Martinez to his brain injury. As they prepared to move out, Thompson approached Elena with questions that Marcus desperately wanted to hear answered. But before the conversation could begin, the radio erupted with another emergency call. Charlie team, this is Bravo squad. We are taking heavy contact and have multiple casualties. Request immediate assistance. Elena was already moving toward their vehicle before Thompson could give the order. As Marcus gathered his gear, he realized that whatever Elena's background was, they were about to see more of her capabilities. The convoy raced through the narrow streets toward Bravo Squad's last known position, with Elena studying a tactical map while simultaneously monitoring 3 different radio frequencies. Marcus watched her coordinate with overhead surveillance, ground units, and air support with the kind of seamless efficiency that suggested years of experience in joint operations. Bravo Squad is pinned down in a market complex approximately 2 clicks northeast of our position, she reported to Thompson. Satellite imagery shows at least 15 enemy fighters in reinforced positions. They have multiple wounded and limited ammunition. Marcus found himself wondering when Elena had gained access to satellite imagery and how she was communicating with assets that weren't available to their standard unit. The radio frequencies she was monitoring weren't ones that had been briefed to Charlie team, yet somehow she had clearance to access them. As they approached the market complex, the sound of gunfire became increasingly intense. Through the bulletproof glass, Marcus could see smoke rising from several buildings and the occasional flash of explosions. This wasn't the opportunistic ambush they had encountered earlier. This was a sustained firefight between professional forces. Charlie team, this is Bravo 6, came the desperate voice of Lieutenant Anderson over the radio. We have 4 wounded and are running low on ammunition. Enemy forces have us surrounded and are moving in for final assault. Elena was out of the vehicle before it came to a complete stop, moving immediately toward the sound of gunfire. Marcus grabbed his medical kit and followed, but once again found himself struggling to keep pace with her tactical movement through the urban terrain. The market complex was a maze of narrow alleys, vendor stalls, and multi-story buildings that provided countless hiding spots and fields of fire. Elena navigated through it like she had blueprints memorized, taking routes that avoided the obvious choke points and areas where enemy fighters were likely to be positioned. They reached an overwatch position where they could see Bravo Squad's defensive position. 8 soldiers were barricaded behind concrete barriers in what had once been the central courtyard of the market. Around them, muzzle flashes indicated enemy positions in at least 6 different buildings. Marcus could see 2 soldiers who were clearly wounded lying in the courtyard, unable to move to better cover. The situation was deteriorating rapidly, and conventional tactics would require calling in air strikes that might hit the surrounded friendly forces. Elena studied the battlefield for less than 30 seconds before keying her radio to a frequency Marcus didn't recognize. Overwatch 7, this is Guardian. Request immediate ISR on grid 41 SMB. Tunnel 345-67890. Need real-time positions on all enemy combatants in the target area. The response came immediately in a voice that carried the crisp professionalism of a military intelligence operator. Guardian Overwatch 7. We have 15 enemy combatants identified. Transmitting positions to your tactical display. Now Marcus watched in amazement as Elena pulled out a handheld device that displayed a real-time overhead view of the battlefield with enemy positions marked in red and friendly forces in blue. This was technology he had heard about but never seen in the field. Certainly not available to a staff sergeant in a conventional unit. Thompson, I need you to provide suppressive fire on positions Alpha through Charlie, Elena said, indicating 3 buildings on her device. On my mark, lay down everything you have for 60 seconds. She turned to Marcus with an expression that was completely focused and utterly confident. When I give the signal, you move directly to the wounded in the courtyard. Don't deviate from the path I'm about to show you, and don't stop for anything. I'll have the route clear. Elena traced a path on her device that wound through the market stalls in what seemed like an unnecessarily complicated route. Marcus started to question the path, but something in her expression stopped him. This wasn't a suggestion. It was an order from someone who knew exactly what she was doing. Execute in 30 seconds, Elena announced, then disappeared into the maze of buildings with the same fluid grace he had witnessed earlier. Marcus positioned himself at the starting point of the route Elena had shown him, his medical kit secured and ready. Through his earpiece, he could hear Thompson coordinating with the other members of Charlie team to provide the suppressive fire Elena had requested. Guardian is in position, came Elena's voice over the radio, though Marcus had no idea where she was or how she had gotten there so quickly. Execute, 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 Thompson commanded. The world erupted in gunfire as Charlie team laid down suppressive fire on the designated positions. Marcus immediately began moving along the route Elena had mapped out, trusting that she knew what she was doing even though he couldn't understand how. As he moved through the market stalls, Marcus became aware that the enemy return fire was significantly lighter than it had been moments before. More importantly, none of it was directed at his position, even though he was moving through what should have been multiple fields of fire. He reached the first wounded soldier, Corporal James Liu, who had taken a bullet through the shoulder and was losing blood steadily. As Marcus began treating the wound, he could hear single rifle shots coming from different positions around the market complex. Each shot was followed by a noticeable decrease in enemy fire. Guardian has eyes on all enemy positions. Elena's voice came through his earpiece. Medic is clear to continue treatment. Marcus stabilized Liu and moved to the second casualty, Sergeant Patricia Wells, who had shrapnel wounds to her legs and was in significant pain but stable. As he worked, he became aware that the battlefield had gone strangely quiet. The sustained gunfire that had been echoing through the complex had died down to occasional single shots. All enemy combatants neutralized, Elena announced over the radio with the same calm tone she might use to report the weather. Bravo, squad. You are clear to establish security perimeter and prepare for casualty evacuation. Marcus looked around the courtyard in disbelief. Less than 10 minutes earlier, Bravo Squad had been surrounded by 15 enemy fighters in a complex urban environment. Now the battlefield was silent, and Elena was emerging from a building 200 meters away, moving toward their position with her rifle lowered but ready. As she approached, Marcus noticed details he had missed before. Her equipment was standard issue, but it had been modified in subtle ways that spoke of extensive field experience. Her movement was economical and purposeful, with none of the wasted motion that characterized even experienced conventional soldiers. Lieutenant Anderson approached Elena with questions written all over his face, but she deflected them by immediately focusing on the tactical situation and preparations for extraction. "We need to consolidate our position and prepare for possible counterattack," she said to Anderson. "This level of coordination suggests we're dealing with professional fighters, not local insurgents." As if to emphasize her point, the radio crackled with reports from other units in the area. The attacks on Charlie Team and Bravo Squad had been part of a larger, coordinated assault involving multiple enemy units across a wide area. Marcus finished treating the wounded and found himself watching Elena coordinate defensive positions with the kind of tactical knowledge that went far beyond staff sergeant level training. Whatever her real background was, she was operating at a level that suggested extensive experience in special operations. The extraction helicopters arrived 30 minutes later, but by then Marcus had witnessed Elena coordinate a defensive perimeter that would have impressed a seasoned infantry officer. She had positioned the combined Charlie Team and Bravo Squad elements with overlapping fields of fire, established communication protocols with multiple command elements, and somehow gained access to intelligence feeds that were providing real-time updates on enemy movement in the surrounding area. As the wounded were loaded onto the helicopters, Marcus found himself riding back to base in the same vehicle as Elena. The quiet, reserved soldier had returned, but Marcus now understood it was a carefully maintained facade. When she thought no one was watching, he caught glimpses of someone constantly assessing threats, cataloging details, and maintaining the kind of situational awareness that became second nature to special operations personnel. Back at Forward Operating Base Chapman, the debriefing revealed the scope of what they had encountered. The attacks had been part of a coordinated assault involving over 60 enemy fighters across multiple locations. Intelligence reports suggested the operation had been planned and executed by former military personnel, possibly foreign special operations advisors working with local insurgent groups. During the formal debriefing, Elena provided tactically accurate reports that focused on enemy capabilities and friendly casualties. She avoided discussing her own actions and deflected questions about her combat performance with the kind of practiced evasion that suggested extensive experience in operational security. Marcus watched Colonel Morrison's reaction during Elena's debrief. The commanding officer asked pointed questions about intelligence sources and communication protocols that seemed designed to test Elena's responses. Her answers were precise and professional, but Marcus noticed she never provided information about capabilities or assets that hadn't been directly relevant to the mission. After the formal debriefing, Marcus approached Elena as she was cleaning her weapon in the team room. The rifle she was maintaining was standard issue, but he noticed modifications that weren't available through normal supply channels. The scope, trigger group, and stock had all been upgraded with components that required special authorization. "That was some impressive shooting today," Marcus said, settling into a chair across from her. Elena looked up from her rifle with those dark eyes that seemed to catalog every detail. "Training and practice," she replied simply, returning to her weapon maintenance. Marcus had served with enough special operations personnel to recognize the signs. The weapon modifications, the tactical communications equipment she had access to, the way she moved through urban terrain, and most importantly, the way she had systematically eliminated 15 enemy combatants in a complex environment, all pointed to someone with extensive special operations background. "What unit were you with before joining Charlie Team?" he asked directly. Elena's hands never paused in their methodical cleaning of her rifle. "Various assignments. Nothing particularly interesting." It was the kind of non-answer that Marcus had learned to recognize from operators who couldn't discuss their previous assignments due to classification levels. The military was full of people who had served in units that officially didn't exist, conducting operations that were never documented in official records. Over the next several days, Marcus began paying closer attention to Elena's behavior and capabilities. During training exercises, she consistently performed at levels that exceeded what should have been possible for someone with her stated background. Her marksmanship scores were perfect. Her tactical knowledge was encyclopedic, and her physical conditioning was at a level that suggested years of specialized training. More telling were the small details that she couldn't completely hide. The way she instinctively checked corners when entering buildings, how she positioned herself to have clear sight lines and multiple exit routes during briefings. The fact that she maintained her equipment to standards that exceeded even SEAL team requirements. Marcus also noticed that Elena received communications on encrypted channels that weren't available to the rest of Charlie team. During quiet periods, she would step away to take calls on equipment that appeared to be specially issued. The conversations were always brief and conducted in languages he couldn't identify. 3 days after the market complex engagement, Charlie team was tasked with providing security for a convoy delivering supplies to a remote outpost near the Pakistani border. It was supposed to be a routine mission through relatively secure territory, but Marcus had learned that nothing involving Elena was ever routine. The convoy consisted of 6 vehicles carrying medical supplies, ammunition, and replacement personnel for the outpost. Charlie team provided security in 2 armored Humvees, while Elena rode in the lead vehicle with Marcus and Thompson. The route took them through mountainous terrain that provided countless opportunities for ambush. Elena spent the journey monitoring radio traffic and studying intelligence reports on her handheld device. Marcus noticed she was tracking weather patterns, satellite imagery, and communication intercepts that painted a picture of enemy activity in the area. Intel suggests possible enemy observation posts along the ridgeline, she reported to Thompson. Recommend alternate route through valley approach. Thompson consulted his map and frowned. That route adds 40 minutes to our travel time and takes us through terrain that's more difficult to secure. Elena's response was patient, but firm. The ridgeline route has been compromised. Signals intelligence indicates enemy forces have been tracking Convoy movements for the past week. Marcus found himself wondering how Elena had access to signals, intelligence that wasn't being shared with the Convoy commander. Her sources of information seemed to extend far beyond what was available to a conventional unit operating in the field. Thompson made the decision to follow Elena's recommendation, and they diverted to the valley route. As they descended into the narrow pass between 2 mountain ridges, Marcus felt the familiar tension that preceded contact. The terrain was perfect for an ambush, with multiple positions that could provide overlapping fields of fire on the convoy. Elena was monitoring multiple radio frequencies when her posture suddenly changed. The relaxed alertness that characterized her normal state transformed into the focused intensity Marcus had witnessed during combat. All vehicles stop, she ordered over the radio. Do not proceed beyond this position. Thompson immediately questioned the order. Vasquez, what's your status? Why are we stopping? Elena was already exiting the vehicle with her rifle in hand. Drone surveillance has identified enemy forces positioned ahead of our route. I count at least 20 combatants with heavy weapons positioned to engage the convoy. Marcus looked around the empty valley and saw nothing that suggested enemy presence. The terrain appeared exactly as it had moments before. Empty ridgelines, scattered vegetation, and no signs of human activity. Guardian, this is Overwatch 7, came a voice over Elena's personal communication system. Confirmed enemy positions at grid references Alpha through Delta. Recommend immediate withdrawal or alternate tactical approach. Elena studied her handheld device for several seconds before keying her radio to the convoy frequency. Enemy forces have been tracking our movement and are positioned in prepared ambush sites. Recommend we establish Overwatch and eliminate threats before proceeding. What happened next would demonstrate capabilities that left Marcus questioning everything he thought he knew about Elena's background and training. Elena coordinated with assets that Thompson didn't even know existed. Within minutes, Marcus heard the distant sound of rotor blades as an attack helicopter appeared over the ridgeline. The aircraft wasn't marked with standard military identifiers, and its approach pattern suggested pilots who were intimately familiar with special operations procedures. Phantom 6. This is Guardian. Elena spoke into her specialized communication device. I have multiple enemy positions marked for immediate engagement. Request precision strikes on designated targets. The helicopter pilot's response carried the crisp professionalism of someone accustomed to working with special operations personnel. Guardian Phantom 6, we have visual on all marked positions. Ready to engage on your command. Marcus watched through his binoculars as Elena directed the helicopter to positions that appeared empty to him, yet somehow she was providing precise grid coordinates for targets that his trained eye couldn't identify. The helicopter began engaging positions along the ridgeline with the kind of surgical precision that suggested extensive intelligence preparation. Each rocket strike was followed by secondary explosions that indicated the destruction of prepared fighting positions and weapons caches. What Marcus had assumed was empty terrain had actually been a carefully prepared ambush site that would have destroyed their convoy. All designated targets eliminated, the helicopter pilot reported. Guardian, we show clear passage for your convoy. Elena coordinated the convoy's movement through the valley with the same methodical precision she had demonstrated in urban combat. She positioned overwatch elements, established communication protocols with the attack helicopter, and maintained real-time intelligence updates on enemy activity throughout the area. As they reached the outpost without further incident, Marcus realized that Elena had prevented what would have been a devastating ambush through access to intelligence and assets that operated far above their unit's level. The attack helicopter, the satellite surveillance, and the signals intelligence she was receiving all suggested connections to Special Operations Command structures. At the outpost, Marcus was approached by Major Sarah Collins, the intelligence officer responsible for the sector. Collins was a 15-year veteran with extensive experience in Special Operations intelligence, and her questions about Elena were pointed and specific. Staff Sergeant Vasquez has been receiving intelligence briefings that aren't available through normal channels, Collins observed. Her tactical communications equipment appears to be specially issued, and she's demonstrated capabilities that suggest advanced training. Marcus found himself in the uncomfortable position of defending a teammate whose background he didn't understand. She's been effective in combat situations. Her performance has saved lives. Collins studied him with the kind of analytical gaze that suggested she was weighing information he wasn't privy to. Her performance has been exceptional. That's exactly what concerns me. Over the next hour, Marcus learned that Elena's presence in their unit was generating questions at multiple levels of command. Her access to classified intelligence, her communication with assets outside normal command structures, and her demonstrated capabilities all suggested someone operating under authorities that exceeded her apparent rank and position. There are protocols for embedding Special Operations personnel with conventional units, Collins explained. Those protocols require coordination with unit commanders and appropriate security clearances. For the teams they're assigned to, Marcus began to understand that Elena's assignment to Charlie team might not have been the routine personnel transfer it had appeared to be. Someone with her capabilities wouldn't normally be assigned to a conventional unit without specific mission requirements that hadn't been shared with the team. That evening, Marcus found Elena performing maintenance on equipment that definitely wasn't standard issue. The night vision devices, communications gear, and specialized ammunition she was working with were items he had only seen during joint operations with Special Operations forces. Elena, Marcus said, using her first name for the first time, I need to understand what's really going on here. She looked up from the night vision device she was calibrating, and for a moment, her carefully maintained facade slipped. Marcus saw exhaustion, stress, and something that might have been relief at finally being asked directly about her situation. I can't discuss my previous assignments, she said quietly. What I can tell you is that I'm here because there's a specific threat that requires my particular skill set. Marcus settled into a chair across from her, recognizing that this conversation would determine whether he could continue serving effectively with someone whose background remained largely classified. Attacks we've been facing aren't random insurgent activity, Elena continued. Intelligence indicates we're dealing with foreign special operations personnel who are training and equipping local forces with advanced tactics and weapons. She pulled out her handheld device and showed Marcus intelligence reports that painted a picture of a sophisticated enemy organization. The attacks on Charlie Team and Bravo Squad had been part of a larger campaign, designed to test American response capabilities and identify weaknesses in conventional unit tactics. My mission is to identify and neutralize the foreign advisors who are training these groups, Elena explained. The problem is that they're using the same tactics and equipment that American Special Operations Forces use, which makes them extremely difficult to detect and engage. Marcus began to understand why someone with Elena's capabilities had been assigned to their unit. Charlie Team's area of operations had become a testing ground for enemy forces using advanced special operations tactics. Conventional units weren't equipped to deal with that level of threat. "How long have you been doing this kind of work?" Marcus asked. Elena's smile was brief and didn't reach her eyes. "Long enough to know that the enemy we're facing is professionally trained and well-equipped. They've been observing our tactics and developing countermeasures specifically designed to defeat conventional forces." The implications of what she was telling him were sobering. If foreign special operations personnel were actively training insurgent groups in advanced tactics, then every conventional unit operating in the area was potentially facing threats they weren't prepared to handle. "What happens when your mission is complete?" Marcus asked. Elena returned to working on her equipment with movements that had become mechanical. "I go back to my regular assignment and you probably never see me again." Marcus found himself wondering what Elena's regular assignment actually involved, and whether the quiet, professional soldier he was talking to was the real Elena Vasquez or just another carefully constructed identity. Over the next few days, Marcus paid closer attention to the intelligence reports that Elena was receiving. The pattern of enemy activity suggested a level of coordination and sophistication that went far beyond what local insurgent groups should have been capable of achieving. The attacks were being conducted using combined arms tactics, advanced communications equipment, and weapons that weren't available through normal insurgent supply channels. Most troubling was evidence that the enemy forces were using American tactical doctrine and equipment, suggesting they had been trained by personnel with intimate knowledge of U.S. military procedures. Marcus began to understand that Elena's mission involved more than just neutralizing specific targets. She was gathering intelligence on enemy capabilities and tactics that would be used to develop countermeasures for other units operating in the region. But as he watched Elena prepare for their next mission, Marcus realized that her greatest challenge might not be the enemy forces she was hunting. It might be maintaining her cover while working with a team that was beginning to ask questions she couldn't answer. The mission briefing came at 400 hours, delivered by Colonel Morrison with the kind of gravity that indicated classified intelligence and high-level coordination. Charlie Team was tasked with conducting a reconnaissance mission to identify and observe a suspected training facility located in a remote mountain compound 30 kilometers from their current position. Marcus noticed that Elena received a separate briefing from Morrison, conducted in private with communications equipment that wasn't available to the rest of the team. When she emerged from the colonel's office, her demeanor had shifted to the focused intensity that preceded significant combat operations. "Intel suggests we're dealing with a sophisticated training operation," Elena reported to the team. "The facility appears to be designed for advanced tactical instruction, possibly involving foreign advisors." Thompson studied the reconnaissance photos with obvious concern. The compound showed signs of recent construction designed specifically for military training. Obstacle courses, firing ranges, and buildings arranged to simulate urban combat environments. "Rules of engagement are observe and report only," Thompson emphasized. "We are not authorized to engage unless directly threatened." Elena's response was immediate and firm. "Understood. However, I recommend we prepare for contact. The facility's security measures suggest they're protecting something valuable." The team moved out before dawn, traveling on foot through mountainous terrain that provided good concealment, but limited escape routes. Elena took point, navigating through the rocky landscape with the kind of confidence that suggested extensive mountain warfare training. As they approached the target area, Marcus became aware that Elena was receiving real-time intelligence updates through her specialized communication equipment. She would periodically call for brief halts to receive information that wasn't being shared with the rest of the team. "Guardian, this is Overwatch 7, came the familiar voice through Elena's earpiece. "Thermal imaging shows approximately 40 personnel at the target location. Multiple guard positions and patrol patterns suggest professional security. Protocols." Elena studied her handheld device before signaling the team to take cover behind a ridge that provided observation of the compound. Through his binoculars, Marcus could see a level of activity that indicated ongoing training operations. The compound contained multiple buildings arranged around a central courtyard, with firing ranges and obstacle courses that showed evidence of recent use. More concerning were the vehicles parked in the compound, military-style trucks and equipment that appeared to be in excellent condition. "This isn't a typical insurgent training camp," Elena observed quietly. The layout and equipment suggest professional military instruction. Through his scope, Marcus could see personnel moving through the compound, with the kind of discipline and coordination that characterized trained military forces. The individuals weren't wearing standard insurgent clothing, but appeared to be equipped with modern tactical gear. Elena was documenting everything through specialized photography equipment that provided detailed imagery for intelligence analysis. As she worked, Marcus noticed she was also monitoring communications from the compound, using electronic surveillance equipment that definitely wasn't standard issue. "They're conducting advanced tactical training," Elena reported after listening to intercepted communications. "The instruction appears to be in multiple languages, including English and Russian." The implications were significant. If foreign military advisors were operating a training facility in their area of operations, it represented a level of enemy capability that could affect American operations throughout the region. As they observed the compound, Marcus witnessed training scenarios that involved urban combat tactics, advanced weapons handling, and coordination between multiple small units. The level of instruction was far beyond what local insurgent groups typically received. "Guardian, this is Overwatch 7. We have identified at least 6 personnel who match profiles of known foreign special operations advisors. Recommend immediate exfiltration and mission escalation." Elena's response was calm, but Marcus could see the tension in her posture. "Copy Overwatch 7. Maintaining observation for additional intelligence collection." For the next 2 hours, they documented activities that painted a picture of a sophisticated training operation designed to produce highly capable enemy fighters. The foreign advisors were instructing local personnel in tactics that would make them significantly more effective. Against American forces, Marcus was focusing his binoculars on a group conducting weapons training when Elena suddenly grabbed his arm with urgent pressure. "We need to move now." Before he could ask why, the sound of helicopter rotors echoed through the valley. 2 aircraft appeared over the ridgeline, flying in formation toward their observation position. The helicopters weren't American, and their approach pattern suggested they were conducting a security sweep of the area. Elena was already moving toward a concealed position that would provide better cover from aerial observation. "They've detected our presence. Electronic countermeasures indicate they have sophisticated surveillance equipment." The team moved quickly through terrain that provided limited concealment from aerial surveillance. Elena coordinated their movement with the kind of expertise that suggested extensive experience in evading enemy aircraft. She guided them through routes that utilized natural camouflage and avoided areas where their thermal signatures would be easily detected. As they reached a position that provided better concealment, Marcus realized that Elena was simultaneously coordinating their escape route while maintaining communication with intelligence, assets that were providing real-time updates on enemy aircraft movements. "Phantom 6, this is Guardian. Request immediate extraction from grid coordinates I'm transmitting. We have actionable intelligence that requires immediate analysis." The response came from the same helicopter pilot who had provided support during their convoy mission. "Guardian, Phantom 6, we're 15 minutes out. Can you reach the designated extraction point?" Elena studied her tactical display and calculated distances with the kind of precision that suggested extensive experience in extraction operations under pressure. "Affirmative. We'll be in position." As they moved toward the extraction point, Marcus noticed that Elena was destroying equipment and documentation that couldn't be allowed to fall into enemy hands. Her actions were methodical and practiced, suggesting she had been trained in operational security procedures that went far beyond conventional military requirements. The extraction helicopter arrived precisely on schedule, landing in a clearing that provided minimal exposure to enemy observation. As the team boarded the aircraft, Marcus caught sight of the crew. They were wearing equipment and insignia that suggested special operations aviation. During the flight back to base, Elena coordinated with multiple intelligence agencies to ensure that the information they had gathered would be analyzed immediately. Her communications revealed connections to command structures that operated far above the level of conventional military units. As they approached their base, Marcus realized that their reconnaissance mission had uncovered evidence of foreign military intervention that would have significant implications for American operations in the region. But he also understood that Elena's true mission was far from complete. The foreign advisors they had observed represented a direct threat to American forces, and Elena's specialized training made her uniquely qualified to deal with that threat. What Marcus didn't yet understand was that their next mission would require Elena to use capabilities that would reveal the true extent of her background and training. The emergency briefing convened at 2200 hours with personnel Marcus had never seen before: intelligence specialists, special operations planners, and communication technicians who carried themselves with the quiet professionalism of people accustomed to classified operations. Colonel Morrison introduced a civilian analyst identified only as Mr. Davidson, who presented intelligence that changed everything. The facility you observed is part of a larger network, designed to train insurgent forces in advanced special operations tactics, Davidson explained, displaying satellite imagery that showed multiple similar compounds throughout the region. We have identified the foreign advisors as former Spetsnaz personnel operating under contract to destabilize American operations. The intelligence was sobering. 6 former Russian special operations soldiers were training local insurgent groups in tactics specifically designed to counter American military capabilities. Their students were being taught to use American equipment and doctrine against conventional forces who weren't prepared for that level of sophistication. Staff Sergeant Vasquez, Davidson addressed Elena directly. Your mission parameters are hereby expanded to include direct action against identified foreign advisors. You are authorized to use any means necessary to neutralize this threat. Marcus watched Elena's reaction carefully. The formal authorization seemed to unlock something in her demeanor. The carefully maintained facade of a conventional soldier fell away completely, replaced by someone who belonged in the same room with special operations planners and intelligence professionals. I'll need complete tactical intelligence on all 6 targets. Elena responded with the confidence of someone accustomed to planning complex operations. Additionally, I require coordination with available special operations assets for mission support. Davidson nodded and handed Elena a classified folder that contained detailed profiles of each target. We have real-time surveillance, signals intelligence, and special operations aviation standing by. This operation has been designated Priority 1. Over the next 6 hours, Marcus watched Elena plan and coordinate an operation that involved multiple special operations elements, intelligence assets, and air support. Her transformation was complete. She was no longer pretending to be anything other than what she actually was. Marcus, Elena said as she prepared her equipment for the mission, I need you to understand something. My real name is Elena Vasquez and I am a staff sergeant, but I'm assigned to a special operations unit that officially doesn't exist. She showed him identification that bore the same name but listed assignments and qualifications that painted a picture of someone with extensive special operations experience, multiple combat deployments, advanced training certifications, and security clearances that were far above conventional military levels. I've been tracking these foreign advisors for 8 months, Elena continued. My assignment to Charlie Team was covered to position me in their area of operations without alerting them to special operations interest. Marcus found himself reassessing every interaction they had shared. Elena's exceptional combat performance, her access to classified intelligence, and her specialized equipment all made sense in the context of someone conducting a long-term special operations mission. Why are you telling me this now? Marcus asked. Elena's response was immediate and honest. Because tonight's operation will require capabilities that I can't hide anymore, and because you've earned the right to know who you've been serving with. The mission launched at 300 hours with Elena leading a small team that included Marcus and 2 operators he hadn't met before. The additional personnel carried equipment and displayed tactical proficiency that left no doubt about their special operations background. Their target was the compound they had observed earlier, but now they were approaching with lethal intent rather than reconnaissance objectives. Elena coordinated the assault with precision that demonstrated extensive experience in direct action operations. Guardian. This is Overwatch 7. All targets are accounted for and thermal signatures confirm 6 foreign advisors are present at the facility. Elena's response carried the calm confidence of someone who had conducted similar operations many times before. Copy Overwatch 7, beginning final approach. The assault began with coordinated sniper fire that eliminated sentries before they could raise an alarm. Elena moved through the compound with the fluid grace Marcus had witnessed before. But now he understood it was the result of years of specialized training in close-quarters combat. Each foreign advisor was engaged and neutralized with surgical precision. Elena's marksmanship was flawless. Her tactical movement was perfect, and her coordination with supporting elements was seamless. This was someone who had been trained by the best special operations instructors in the world. The operation was completed in less than 20 minutes, with no American casualties and complete mission success. As they prepared to extract, Elena coordinated the destruction of training materials and equipment that would have been used to create more sophisticated enemy fighters. During the extraction flight, Marcus finally understood what he had been witnessing over the past month. Elena wasn't just a skilled soldier who had been assigned to their unit. She was a special operations professional who had been conducting a classified mission that involved infiltrating and neutralizing a sophisticated enemy network. Your cover is blown now, Marcus observed as they flew back to base. Elena's smile was the first genuine expression he had seen from her since she had joined their team. The mission is complete. The foreign advisors are neutralized, and the intelligence we gathered will be used to identify and eliminate similar operations throughout the region. As they landed at their base, Marcus realized that Elena would probably be reassigned to another classified mission within days. Her work with Charlie Team had been successful, but it had been just one operation in what was likely a career spent in the shadows of special operations. Will you stay with the team? Marcus asked as they prepared to debrief. Elena looked at him with those dark eyes that he now understood had seen far more combat than most soldiers would experience in multiple tours. My next assignment is already waiting, but I want you to know that serving with Charlie Team has been an honor. 3 days later, Elena Vasquez departed Forward Operating Base Chapman as quietly as she had arrived. Her replacement was listed as a routine personnel transfer, and there was no official record of the operation that had eliminated 6 foreign special operations advisors. Marcus never saw Elena again, but 6 months later, he received a classified briefing that detailed the success of operations against foreign military advisors throughout the region. The intelligence that Elena had gathered during her time with Charlie Team had led to the identification and neutralization of an entire network of foreign special operations personnel who had been training insurgent forces. The briefing didn't mention Elena by name, but Marcus recognized the tactical signature of operations that bore her professional touch. Somewhere in the world, Elena was continuing the quiet, dangerous work of protecting American forces by eliminating threats that conventional military units weren't equipped to handle. Marcus kept the secret of Elena's true identity and mission, understanding that some soldiers served in ways that would never be acknowledged in official records. He had been privileged to serve alongside someone whose dedication to protecting others required sacrificing recognition and living in the shadows of classified operations. Years later, when Marcus encountered other situations involving personnel whose capabilities exceeded their apparent backgrounds, he would remember Elena and understand that the military's most effective operators often worked in complete anonymity. Their successes measured not in medals or recognition, but in the lives of fellow soldiers they protected through missions that officially never happened.